Hi everyone, my name is K.S. Chaitanya. Today I am going to explain a topic called error and exceptions in Python. So the concept are critical. This concept is about the errors and exceptions we can face while writing the program in our Python. So let's discuss about it. What is the errors in syntax versus runtime? What is syntax error and runtime exception error? Interpreter cannot pass code detected before executing. What is it? Interpreter cannot pass code detect before execution. Where before execution it will get an error of syntax error if your syntax is not correct before execution of it. Where the result syntax error code won't run. Where it is shown here as print hello brackets were not closed, which is syntax error. So you'll immediately get an error, system error before executing of error of this. Where is runtime error exception is called when the program is executed. While doing it, it occurs somewhat exception. For example, invalid operation or etc. Where and you've given number which is divisible by 0 when the user gave a number 0 as an input which is dividing by a number. So there it will raise an like error or exception where it say that 0 cannot be divided with any number. So runtime error is is what is after execution it will show the error. Syntax error is before the execution. So common runtime exception error types are type error, value error, and zero division error. Type error is where the types are mismatched, where string and number cannot be added, which is given as an error. And value error, if you give an input as like get an value in type, where the user gave us value as in type of string, where you have asked for int, you have given string which is not matched, then you'll get an error as value error. And you will also has a zero division error where divisible by zero, example as same as before. You'll mention some code as result 10 by divisor, where division should be given as an input by an user, where user gives an 0. While doing it, it will detect an error called zero division error. So we have one more exception type like called index error, where if an list is mentioned and you ask for an index value, you have given an index value which is not an element in the string. I'll give an example like index list equal to 1 2 3 4. It's from 0 to 3 index. So I'll ask a user to give some index value. He given 5, which is not there in my list. So what it say? You got an error like index is out of the range, which is known as index error. So basic exception handlings are try and accept. Where try, what does try block do? Code that might raise an exception. So I have given like asking the user, which was kept in a try block, which raises an expression. Sorry, which raises an exception. When an exception is raised, an except block will detect what exception is set and it's further execute the code. So code execute if the exception occurs. It what does except block does? Like zero division error, index error, value error, etc. So we still have some handling functions like else and final. What is else block? What is final block? Else is only executed when no exception occurs in try, which ensures operations runs on successful execution. Some code is given and some exceptions are given. When none of the exception is there, it will give automatical result where else block is used when no exception is occurred. Whereas coming to the final block, code will always be executed regardless of exception. If exception is present or not, if you mention a final block and print something, it will execute as usual if exception is present or not. So that's what's the difference between else and final. Where else will only execute if exception is not occurred. Final block will execute when an it will execute whenever regardless of exception. Raising custom exception. We also access like custom exception where an user defined. Like define an application specific error condition. You should define a specific error condition inherited from exception. But for raising custom exception, you should define a specific function or error condition which should be inherited from a class exception. For example, inherited a class like class invalid input error value error pass raise. Using raise statement to trigger custom error. You will use a raise statement to trigger and custom error. If not valid data, raise input error as data is invalid if the value. So like I'll tell best practices for like better way to do exception handling functions. Like be specific. You should be specific while doing exception handling function. Catch specific exceptions, not boarded exceptions. Avoid masking other unprofessional issues. You should only focus on specific exception and not focusing on unseen issues. Keep try block small. Basically, you should make how short as possible as try block. You should minimize the code in the try block, which isolates the potential of error zones, improve reliability and debugging efficiently, which improves readability and debugging efficiently. Log errors. Record exceptions with details for analysis. Use Python logging modules. Don't swallow errors. Avoid empty excepts block that hide critical issues. Ensure proper error visibility. You should ensure proper error visibility. You should don't swallow the error. Let's come to the conclusion. 80% daily use. Python professional developers daily use the exception handling function to improvise the course more efficiently. Mastering these exception fundamentals digitalize the syntax errors from runtime exceptions, employ try except else final for comprehension handling, leverage custom exceptions for clear error state, adherence to best practice for maintenance debugging coding that ensures stable, high quality software. So this is the complete, not detail, but you will get a brief thing how to use try, except, final, else, and what are the exceptions like zero, division error, index error, value error. Value error. You'll get the basic idea and how can be it used in this video. So I think you understood and got everything I mentioned before in this video. So thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe.